Hi, I'm Bill Schmick. Welcome to 30 Minutes. Today, something very near and dear to my heart is the subject of our show, women. Women and wealth in America. It's a subject that I've talked about, written about, and spoke about to many, many women all over the United States. Did you know that there are 69 million women at work in the United States, and 10 million of those are sole breadwinners for their family? Women also are starting and running more and more businesses in the United States. Right now, there's over 9.1 million women-owned businesses here in America. And that represents nearly 40% of all businesses in the United States. And these women-owned businesses, they employ 27.5 million workers and generate more than 3.6 trillion in sales. Last year, women, just women, controlled $4.3 trillion. That comes to 60% of the nation's wealth. And did you know that women make about 80% of all purchasing decisions in their family? Everything from computers to homes to automobiles. It's the women that make the decision. And as you probably know, women are a growing force in politics in this country. And you can expect between now and the elections next year that more money and more time will be spent on wooing the woman's vote than ever before. And it looks like we'll have for the first time, well, not for the first time, but one of the candidates will be a woman for President of the United States. However, that's the good news. And despite all this progress of women in business, as it stands right now, few of those women will be able to maintain even a semblance of the lifestyle they lead today. Now, why is that the case? Well, actually, there's three sources of retirement here in this United States: Social Security benefits, income from employee-sponsored plans like 401ks or 403bs or pension, and of course, individual savings. In this country, income inequality, something that I've talked to you about at length in previous shows, bites the woman even more so than men. Did you realize that 2/3 of all those working women I talked about earn less than $30,000 a year? And their jobs are without pensions or even offer these retirement plans that I mentioned. Women earn, did you know this? You probably did. They earn an average of 77 to 87 cents per every dollar that a man works and earns in the United States. And that's a crime. I got some statistics on that, okay? Bloomberg recently measured women's earnings compared to all of those of men. And there was only one job category out of 265 major occupations where women's salary exceeded that of men. And guess what that is? These are female personal care service workers. That's like butlers and valets, house sitters, shoe shiners. Yeah, there women worked and made $1 or $2 for every dollar that a man made, at least in 2010. The 6 jobs with the largest gender gap in pay were, you might imagine, Wall Street, heavy financial sector type jobs. And although 57.6% of women make up the labor force, only 3.7% of those same women ran Fortune 500 companies or were chief executives there. As I said, compared to males, women could make 87 cents for every dollar that you could see as far as secretaries go. Flight attendants, it's another one I picked out. Women make 89 cents for every male dollar. Hairdressers, they make 68 cents per each dollar that males make. Nurses, 92 cents. Lawyers, 78 cents. University professors, 80 cents per dollar. And even doctors, female doctors, made less than their male counterparts. Nearly half of all women in America are in low-paying jobs without retirement benefits or 401ks, as I said. And women are more likely to work part-time than males. Now, why is that the case? Well, women today usually spend as much as 13 years outside of the labor force compared to men's 20 years inside the labor force. And why is that? That's because women will take the time off for a variety of reasons. Raising children is the #1 reason that women take the time off. But it's also in taking care of family members that may get ill or infirm or older. And because of the time that these women spend away from the working place, they only retire with about half the pension benefits that a man will, and about the same amount in a 401k or any other tax-deferred retirement plan. And often, when they return to work, they're hired back, but at low-income, low-wage jobs. Even in Social Security, think about it. When a woman takes off from work, and let's say she spends 27 years totally over her lifetime in the workforce compared to, say, 40 years for a man, then she contributes that much less in Social Security. So once again, when she retires and takes out Social Security benefits, they're a heck of a lot lower than a man's. Now, to make matters even worse, did you know that women on average live about 5 years longer than men? On the surface, that might sound like a good thing, but not when it comes to retirement. Because women need, given that they're going to be living longer, they need more years of retirement money. How much more? Well, just the simple difference between the 5 years between the male and the female. Let's say you need $50,000 a year in retirement to live your lifestyle. 50,000 times 5 years, you need an additional $250,000 just to keep up until you die, compared to what a man will do. Now, that's a tall order, okay? And when I've done some research on what happens to these women and their marital status, it's a little scary. Between the ages of a woman, between the ages of 75 and 84, only 34% of women that were married have a spouse present. That means the men died or maybe divorced. For women aged 85 and older, only 13% are married with a spouse present. And then we add in divorce, which is an increasing ratio, especially over women over 50 and thereabouts. The divorce rate in this country has never been higher. And when I looked at it in 2009, 2010, and for the last couple of years, 600,000 people a year were getting divorced. And what's more, a lot of the women today are initiating that divorce. So what's happening? Here you are, you're in your older ages, your husband is either dying or you're divorced or separated or whatever. You're living on your own income. Social Security is a lot lower. The money you've saved are probably lower as well. When I looked at it, the median income for women who were retired in this country was about $12,480 versus a man's income, which was $21,102. Less than 1/3 of all retired older women today receive a pension income, and less than half of working women have access to either a private pension fund or a retirement fund at their jobs. And of those who do, only 41% of women are taking advantage of contributing to their tax-deferred accounts. In combination, all of these issues basically paint a rather depressing picture for women and retirement in this country. It might explain why the poverty rate in this country for single white women age 65 and older was over 20%. And that's white women. You have to double that for women of color. Social Security continues for many, many women to be the only source of income. And 1 out of 4 unmarried women in this country live and depend on Social Security alone. And honestly, Social Security is just not enough. Also, you women out there are the chaos managers in this country. You all take life for granted. You juggle children and spouses and jobs and caring for parents and friends and relatives, while still trying to manage to secure some time for yourselves and for planning for your own retirement. Last year, women controlled, as I said, $4.3 trillion of this country's wealth. That's a lot of money, but you'd never know it. By the way, women are also the majority now on college campuses. And it seems to me, from what I can gather in this economy, that women joining the workforce is just a given from now on. Most families in this country represent 2 people that are working, both the man and the woman. So here you are, you're 60 years old, you're 55 years old, you're listening to me, and you're probably getting concerned about what you're going to do in retirement. Well, I've done a lot of research, and I've found that there's 5 things that women fear most about their retirement. They fear that they'll outlive their money, and that fear is real. They fear failing health, and what are they going to do, and how are they going to afford to live on failing health? They're worried about inflation, keeping up with the inflation, and they distrust the stock market or any other kind of investment market because they feel it's rigged, and they're paying too much for taxes. And of course, if you think about taxes in this country, they're only going to go up as time goes by. So let's get to the first part, the fears in this country. Number 1, women are afraid that they'll outlive their money. Okay, so how do you avoid that fear? How do you face that fear? Well, you would think, well, savings and investment. The problem with you as a woman is that you're suffering from a gender stereotype from when you were a kid. Investing has been historically a male-based sector, okay? That's it. If I look back in history, sons were more likely to be encouraged to earn money at a much earlier age, probably around 13, than daughters, around 16 or 18. Girls, probably you'll remember this, girls were steered towards studying other things, softer, less technical subjects in school, and boys, according to studies, were twice as likely to be encouraged by their parents to save money and get to work, okay? Now, what has that done to you, okay, as a woman? Well, studies also say that as you got older in school and you haven't taken as much math or hard sciences as males, your confidence level in doing things like investing money became much lower than males. And in this country, what has basically happened is that job of investing, of not saving, but investing, has sort of gravitated to the male. And the female, the women of the house, pretty much manages the bills, but relies on the husband as far as savings and, as I said, finance. Okay, so how do you get out of this? Well, basically, women have to start right now while they're working to address 5 steps which I think will lead to a healthier financial life, okay? Now, the first one is balancing your basic skills. What does that mean? Well, if you balance your budgets, okay, and start planning what to do in your life and lifestyle, the first thing you'll have to do is start to look at your expenses and add them up and find out how much you are actually spending each year. You can start by a month, add up 1 month, add the next, maybe divide by 3 and seeing how much that you're adding up and spending in a quarter. And you'll generally, over doing that over a period of a year, you'll start to understand your expenses. Now, what's important? There are must-have expenses. Okay, must-have expenses are expenses that you have to spend every year, every month. That would be your mortgage, your car payment, medical bills, you might have a student loan, those kinds of must-have expenses. The rule of thumb is that you should spend no more than 50% of your income on must-have expenses. Now, for those of us whose must-have expenses are much higher, this is going to be a learning curve for you. You've got to get those must-have expenses down to 50%. So what if they're 75% now? Well, try and get them down to 60% or 65%. And once you get them to 65, drop them again. Try to get them 5% lower until over time you can get to must-have expenses of no more than 50%. Now, the next rule of thumb is that you should spend the next 10 or 20% of your income on paying down debt. And this is extremely important. Debt is going to kill you and your future. You probably know that in America, most Americans live way beyond their means and their debt has skyrocketed. It starts with the federal government, goes down to the state governments, city governments, towns, and then you personally. Everybody has been living above their means for many, many years in this country. You have to now face that you have to pay down that debt and once more acquire no new debt. Now, this is extremely important because you're going to be living on a fixed income once you retire. So you've got to get used to doing this now. Now, how do you do this? Forget about all of these self-help programs, mortgage companies and debt companies. None of that really works. What only works is reducing your debt and not taking on new debt. So, as I said, every paycheck, every month, every year, you've got to take 10 to 20% of your income and paying off that debt. 50% comes to the must-haves, the must-have expenses that you have to reduce. Then the next 10 to 20%, yes, that's to reduce debt and reduce it and reduce it and reduce it. And what do you do with the remaining 20% of your money? Well, hopefully you spend it or you save some of it. That would be even better, okay? But most Americans, as I said, are not in this particular category. It's going to take you a while to do this, to pay off your debt and not to acquire new debt. Anyway, you've got to start now. You've also got to start building an emergency savings fund. What is that? An emergency savings fund is, most women will have this. They may not call it, but they set aside a certain amount of money for emergencies. The roof caves in, okay? Something happens to the child, okay? You have to repair your car. And again, the rule of thumb here is you should save enough money in order to have 3 months of expenses paid for and keep that in the bank. Keep it safely in the bank. Don't spend it, okay? That's really important. That will be the difference many times between an emergency in which you have to run and borrow money at a high rate of interest and an emergency fund which you've set aside to do this. So that, again, using the emergency fund, you don't go into debt. One of the largest debt issues in this country is your home. Most people borrow, just about everybody borrows, has a mortgage every month. And, you know, let's say they're 15 or 30-year mortgages, and you pay them down dutifully over time. Well, obviously, whatever the price that you paid for the home, you're paying almost double that price by the time you paid off your mortgage in 30 years. The key here is you've got to start paying off that mortgage now, okay? Not just the monthly payment, you've got to start paying more than that. Most people will try to pay, maybe they can't afford to pay double the mortgage payment of the year, but they can put aside $30 if you're paying $850 or $1,250 a month. Maybe you can afford to put another $100 or $200 or whatever into advance paying down that mortgage. If your aunt passes away and leaves you some money, or you get some surprise bonus at work, use that money to pay down your mortgage, because it's really going to be important once you retire. And then, as I said, you have to build your retirement. You have to start doing that now. Okay, I did some numbers here, thinking that, let's say you're making $30,000 a year, okay, and you take 10% of that after taxes. It comes to about $2,160, okay, a year. You take that money and you invest it. And after 25 years, that is, if you take that $2,160 out of your $30,000 paycheck a year and you invest it, you save it, by the end of 25 years, you'll have a nest egg of over $288,000. Now, watch how this works. So let's say you make $50,000 a year. 10% after taxes on that is $3,600. How much will you have saved at the end of 25 years? Almost $500,000. So let's say you're $80,000. 10% after taxes, $5,760. That's almost $800,000 by the end of 25 years. So if you're young and listening to this right now, and you're just getting started, make this a habit. Go into your employer, figure out what 10% after tax means in 12 months. Ask your employer before that paycheck is given to you to take out that money. Trust me, by the end of the first year, you'll never miss it. You'll never realize that that money's coming out, but that money is going to be in your savings account or in your investment account. It's going to be earning for you, and you'll be very happy 25 years hence. And I know 25 years sounds like a long period of time, or 15 years, or 10 years if that's all that's left, but it adds up. Let that compounding work for you, because it's not your mom's world anymore. Not ever, okay? Your mom received a Social Security benefit based on your father's work history, okay? She didn't need to do much else, okay? You didn't have to save much. You didn't have to worry about things like investing in a pension or Social Security benefits. Now, the change is that you're responsible for investing. You're responsible for investing, because Social Security alone is not going to be enough to live on. Generally, your mom deferred all finance decisions and so forth to your father, okay? Basically, he did it. Today, it's a much more equal world, a much more equal marriage, and you know, most of you are making financial decisions together with your husband. Back in your mother's day, she wasn't inclined to use her home as a financial resource in retirement, but today there's a lot more options open to you. I mean, home equity loans, reverse mortgages, things like that are also available. Now, Social Security. When we look at Social Security, my first piece of advice is to delay it. Delay it as long as you can, taking Social Security. Why? Well, at age 62, your payment's going to be a little over $1,000. But every year that because 62 is the legal year in which you can retire early. But every year that you don't retire, the government will give you 8%. Basically, your retirement income increases by 8% a year, every year, up until you're 72. So that's $1,000 or $1,064 a month that you would get at 62 to retire, by the time you're, let's say, 70, your payment would be almost $2,000. It actually comes to $1,924 a month. So it basically is doubled if all you do is delay retirement. Okay. What else can you do to answer your financial needs in retirement? Well, your willingness to invest in the stock and bond market is important. Now remember, I did tell you that women are basically, from their education and from this male-dominated idea that they should be involved in math and the hard sciences while women in the soft sciences and so forth, that has put you to a disadvantage when it comes to investing in the markets, the financial markets. However, I found that my women clients end up, for the most part, being far better investors than my male clients. And the reason why is because my women clients are prone to think more and to react less on an emotional basis when it comes to their money, okay? We all know that the markets are rigged. I'm the first one to admit it. I've written about it and so forth. But that shouldn't prevent you from investing in the markets. Once you know that it's rigged, but you can do something about it. And if you can't do something about it, you can hire somebody that can. Now, so in order for you to save money individually, you're going to need the markets and you're going to need to invest in the markets. If you already have an advisor or if your husband is doing the investments, what you can easily do is insist that you learn more about it from your husband, from reading, from things like that. If you've got an advisor, go to the meetings with your husband, ask questions, and if the advisor tends to ignore you, fire him, get somebody new. I will tell you that if you put the effort in, you will get many, many times returns. Now, markets also help you because in the future, inflation is going to increase. It hasn't in the last several years, but this is an abnormal time in the economy. Inflation will increase, and putting money in the securities market will keep up with inflation. Okay? Now, the other big issue is that you're afraid of, and everyone is afraid of, is health care. Medicare alone is not going to cover it. You're going to need additional insurance. You probably know this. You should do some research in this because healthcare insurance is going to be an important part of your retirement plan. So once you retire, you'll get Medicare, but there will be other insurance programs that you'll need to buy. You'll need the payments to continue to have this coverage that you'll need. Okay. You'll need, again, in retirement, this kind of emergency fund I talked about. Call it a financial cushion fund. Setting aside a certain amount of money, as I said, in retirement for things like increases in property taxes and things like that. You'll need that, but if you've been practicing emergency funds for the next several years, by the time you're in retirement, well, this financial cushion fund will be a piece of cake for you. So, overall, if you follow this advice, you won't have to be afraid of retirement. Retirement for you may mean that you'll get your special travel wishes. You might even get a vacation home if you're younger now and you start saving. So I guess the bottom line is, as a woman, you should not have to fear retirement, but you have to plan for it. And you have to plan for it now and in your future. So thank you very much.